Why would it be a problem to add the YF-23? So, if you don't know, we had a major leak last month that basically leaked all the fifth generations that are coming very soon. They said even maybe this year, but probably next year, and eventually Gaijin just confirmed that it probably will not be this year, right? So it doesn't matter when, but they leaked the fifth generations that Gaijin is working on. Since he came from the sources that normally get everything right, I kind of believe on them, right? And one of the aircraft that was there was the YF-23. If you don't know, the YF-23 is basically the prototype vehicle that was on contention to the spot as the first fifth generation jet to be, massively produced in the US against the F-22, right? They had the YF-22, I think it was called, right? At the time. And why is it a really weird aircraft to leak, to have an idea to be added, and even to be added fully if it's, fully added later? So the thing about the YF-23, guys, is that this aircraft is actually a prototype, right? It's not a fully built aircraft, just like some others that we have in the game, technically, right? For example, the Yak-141, maybe even the F-16AJ, you can kind of add on that, right? The Horton, and many others that are paper-ish on that case. Of course, this is not a paper vehicle, but it was in its prototype phase. What does that mean? Well, the major thing is that the vehicle was not ready. So, of course, if they do indeed add this vehicle, it wouldn't look like the YF-23 that we have photos of. Why is that? Well, it will be basically the same as the Yak-141. When the Yak-141 was added, a lot of people, and people still complain about that the Yak-141 got some things that they never put it on the prototype, right? For example, the IRST. I think the IRST was the major thing that a lot of people were complaining about, where a Yak-141 production model would receive that, but the prototypes never got, right? Since Gaijin wanted to, this is what they say, right? Gaijin wanted to add the Yak-141 as a production model of the Yak. They actually added with the IRST, right? Creating all this fuss. So the YF-23 would kind of be the same. If you actually take a look, for example, on the YF-22, on the prototype of the F-22 and the actual production model of the F-22, you will see that there are a lot of differences between the two, right? That's because, of course, prototypes are not fully built vehicles. They are still in development, and they are just as ready as they can be to be in the competition itself, so that they can later build on that prototype to actually build the production model. Especially because of price, as you know, for example, it's very expensive to buy or to build one of these prototypes, and then even more to actually make a production model with all the systems working and the paint and everything, especially in a stealth aircraft that would be working. So the companies that were building the YF-23 and the YF-22, they had to have a proper idea that the vehicle was going to be built before they could actually make a full version that would look like the version that we saw in production, like the F-22, right? So imagine that the YF-23 would be kind of the same. The YF-23 that we have pictures of would not look like that when it went into production. But the problem is, the Yak-141, for example, is a vehicle that we can know how it would look like, because the production was already accepted into service, or to be produced, right? Not into service, but to be produced. And the factories were already building the first models, like the first fuselages and stuff like that. Very initial production, but still, they were building them, and the project was already fully finalized. It's different a little bit with the YF-23 because it was a prototype that lost the competition, right? So what is my problem with this aircraft? Well, I wonder, and I'm not complaining about this aircraft being added. I really hope it gets added. But I'm going to explain why I do hope that. But the first thing that we need to talk about here is that, guys, if the production model would look different than the YF-23 that we have, for example, the F-23 would look like a different aircraft than the YF-23, how can they actually update the model to be a production model? And why do they need to update that model? Well, the first thing is that the YF-23 wouldn't be a properly usable in combat prototype, I must say, right? A lot of things that were in that prototype made the aircraft not be able to be combat capable. For example, the radar. They never tested a proper radar on the aircraft, if I'm not mistaken. So they had some ideas of what the radar would look like, etc., etc. They would use it as a radar, etc., etc. But they never put a radar on the aircraft itself. And there are multiple other things, like different projects during the flight time and during the project time that they were developing the aircraft. So what variant of the drawings would you actually use? How the especially the bomb bay or the missile bay would look like, because there were many provisions to make the weapons bay different, so I think they had a kind of a semi-working one, but they never fully tested the missiles. So how can they add these missiles if the missile bay was not really fully ready? So you see that there's a lot of problems that were not fully done in real life. The Gaijin would have to kind of have a creative kind of freedom over here to actually add it. Choose one of the designs that were never built, maybe the rotary one or some of the other ones, and just add that, and then have it as the main thing. Bring a radar that they talked about adding it that they never did, and add it to the vehicle, right? And why is that a problem? Because this opens up a Pandora's box again, right? I honestly believe it would be very cool to see this aircraft, but wouldn't it be kind of weird to see a vehicle like this when they just said that they don't want to add more vehicles that are paper-ish, So I think it would be kind of weird, right? And at the same time, if they add something like this, you can expect stuff like the Su-47, stuff like the MiG 1.44, because it would be kind of the same idea, right? Of course, this is a project that was a little bit more readier, but still, the idea is the same. And would you like a game that has these vehicles? Because, again, they will not be 100% realistic. They will be kind of a little bit, creative freedom, like I said, right? They would use that probably to finish up the aircraft to be able to be combat capable, right? So, at the end of the day, this is my problem with this aircraft a little bit, is that it opens up kind of a paper-ish kind of line of thinking of the future additions to the game that maybe it will not be that realistic. And I don't know how I feel about that, right? People have jokes about the EAP, for example. It would be kind of the same. Kind of. I mean, it's a little bit less problematic, but still, it's kind of the line of thinking, right? The Su-47, MiG 144, all of these vehicles could be added, right? So it's... should we? That's my question here, right? Like I said, I would be kind of happy because I would love to see a MiG 144 in the game. But again, that aircraft is the same, right? I mean, it's a prototype. The production model would completely be different. The intakes would be different. The radar, the nose cone would be different. The wings would be different. The tail section would be different. So the whole MiG 144 would be different than the version that they actually build to fly, right? So it's problematic, isn't it? So let me know in the comments what you think about this. I think it's a problem that maybe we should not see in the game. The YF-23 is a little bit more pushed to the readier side than an Su-47 and a MiG 144, but still it is on the line of thinking of the Yak 141, maybe a little bit less even. So isn't it really pushing a little bit? I don't know. So again, this is all based off a leak. Let's wait and see what Gaijin does. We might not even see this vehicle ever, but it is interesting to talk about, okay? So I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and let me know in the comments what you think about the YF-23 and if it should be added or not in the future. Maybe even as a premium. So yeah, see ya guys. Thank you all the members and patrons, and bye. See ya.